Fixez.com is going to bring you another repair video today. Looks like we're going to be working on a Nexus Generation 2. Today's video, we're going to show you the steps necessary to remove and replace the display assembly on your Nexus 7. Before we get started with our disassemble, let's go ahead and review our suggested tools. Small Phillips screwdriver, plastic opening tools, a spudger, fine-tipped curved tweezers, precision knife set, a heat gun or a blow dryer. Taking a look at our Nexus, you're going to notice we have a crack running the length of our display assembly. Examining the outside case of our Nexus, you'll see that the seam around the perimeter is quite tight. In order to begin our separation, we're going to go at it with our precision knife kit. And once we get that separation started, we're going to continue on with the plastic opening tool and continue that separation all the way around the perimeter of the Nexus. With all of our clips popped loose, we can now remove the rear portion of our case. With the rear portion of our case removed, let's first bring our attention to the battery, disconnecting it here with our tweezers as we gently pry up on the connection. You'll notice the two ribbon cables that are running over the top of the battery. We need to release those so that we can have access to remove it. Let's start here with the first locking socket, where we flip up the tab in a 90-degree fashion so that we can release the cable from the housing. Our second connection here, which is covered with a small piece of tape, is a pop connector. We can gently pry up on to release it. And our battery is situated in a frame that's secured with 4 Phillips screws, one at each corner, that we can go ahead and remove now. And with our screws removed, we can gently peel up our battery out of the housing and remove it from the Nexus. Let's get working on the first of 2 motherboards. Let's release the other side of this ribbon cable here and remove it completely. We have a very small plug here for the speaker that's pushed into its housing that we can remove. Two locking sockets here for our display assembly connection. It's also secured with a small bit of adhesive that's over top of it. Let's go ahead and peel that adhesive tape up and release our connection. A total of 7 Phillips screws that are securing this motherboard into place. Let's go ahead and remove all of these screws. And our motherboard should be free so that we can gently lift it up and remove it from our tablet. Let's completely remove this second ribbon cable out of the way. Unlock the socket first, and we can pull on the ribbon cable and release it from its housing. At this point, if you take a look at your replacement part, you'll notice that we can change the display assembly without removing any additional parts. We choose to play it a little safe because we are going to be prying pretty heavily on the front display assembly. As to not cause any damage to the additional parts, we're going to continue to remove them from the Nexus. Continuing our disassemble here with the 2 Phillips screws securing the speaker into place. We can now lift that speaker and remove it. Let's remove our ribbon cable here for our volume and power buttons. Again, a locking socket that we must release, and then we can remove the ribbon cable. Another small plug in its housing here for the speaker on this side of the tablet. Let's go ahead and remove that by gently pulling it out of its socket. Eight Phillips screws on this side securing this motherboard down. Let's go ahead and remove those. When we're attempting the removal of this motherboard, let's be sure to peel up our rear-facing camera at the same time. The connection for the rear-facing camera is on the bottom side of the motherboard, and we don't want to cause any damage to its ribbon cable. With a little patience, the motherboard with the rear-facing camera will come up in one piece. Now that our motherboard's out of the way, our second speaker should also be loose for removal. Now that we have all our internal components safely out of the way, we could begin the disassemble of our display assembly from its surrounding framework. At this point, let's use our heat gun or a blow dryer and apply about 1 to 2 minutes of heat to the adhesive that's securing our display assembly to our framework. Heating it up is going to make the adhesive more pliable in hopes of removing the damaged display. We began our entry here to try to separate our display, first with our precision knife kit. We continued to add heat as well as the adhesive began to cool as we were working the display assembly away from the framework. After beginning our gap with the knife kit, we then went at it with either a spudger or a plastic opening tool. You'll notice here in our video that we used a combination of a series of tools: our spudger, plastic opening tool, as well as our precision knife kit. At times, you'll notice that we found it very effective to push on the back side of the display as well to separate it from the frame. With a little bit of patience, the right tools, indefinitely continuing to apply heat, it's just a matter of time before the display actually finds its way out of the frame. Let's go ahead and begin our reassemble, but let's first take a look at a few things. You'll notice here on our replacement part that we have some pre-installed adhesive. If your replacement part does not come with pre-installed adhesive, Fixez does send out free adhesive strips with all of our replacement parts. You're going to utilize a razor blade or scissors, cut it to size and shape, and lay it down before installing your new part. We did a dry fit here of our display assembly before adhering it to the framework. We want to make sure that we know where to fish the ribbon cables through first, and to make sure that we line up the lens for the front-facing camera accordingly. We can now remove the covers on our pre-installed adhesive here. Make sure that when you're going to set it to the frame, that you do so very accurately. Start in one corner and then work yourself around the perimeter of the framework until the frame and the new display are flush. We can now begin reinstalling all of our components, starting with one of our two speakers. Our motherboard's going to lay over top of the speaker. Let's be careful to rest our rear-facing camera properly in its housing. And we can now secure the motherboard with the 8 Phillips screws. Let's now plug our speaker connection back into its housing. And now our ribbon cable for the volume and power buttons here on the side. Once you slide the ribbon cable in, don't forget to lock the socket down. Let's now bring in the speaker on the other side and secure it with the 2 Phillips screws. And now we can install the bottom portion of our ribbon cable here for the display assembly. Again, let's not forget to lock this socket. We can now install our motherboard over top of this connection and secure it with its 7 Phillips screws. Let's secure our 2 connections here for the display assembly. Both are locking sockets. Let's secure both of those down properly. Moving over to the plug for our speaker. Let's secure that in the housing. And bring in the second ribbon cable here. Sliding it in and locking it down. We can now bring the battery back into the housing in the center of the Nexus. Secure it down with its 4 screws. And let's move on to the two connections that run over top of the battery, starting with the wider of the two ribbon cables, sliding it into its locking housing and locking it down accordingly. Our pop connector here, we can gently push into the motherboard and secure with a small piece of tape over top of it again. And our final connection, which is going to be our battery plug here that we're going to go ahead and push down into the motherboard. Looks like everything's secure, that we can bring in our rear cover. When reinstalling the rear cover, let's work on the dock port side first. And then continuing around the perimeter of the Nexus until it's fully secured. We can now power the unit on. Check for full functionality. And there you have it. Another successful repair by Fixez.com. All of the parts and tools you've seen today in this video are available at www.fixez.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter.